since I didn't do news of the week during this weekend, and this was the first time I didn't do a news of the week during the weekend because I've been very busy in terms of doing these season preview for all 2016, and so far the progress in terms of doing these preview for all 2016 has been pretty good. I mean, by the time I do Orlando City season preview tonight, I would be now up to 10 teams in terms of the season preview, and I should be done with all the Eastern Conference team in the season preview by Saturday, and next week I will start talking about the Western Conference and cover the last 13 teams in that conference. But since I didn't do a weekend edition of News of the Week, and since there was tons of news that's happened in the last week or so, I'm going to have to kind of divide this News of the Week into two parts, and I'm going to once again have to switch board and talk about some other big news that has happened. And there's been a lot of different kinds of news that I have to report. There's been signings, there's been rumors, and unfortunately we have to talk about injuries. And you know, this is kind of the time where every single team are just kind of, you know, they're happy the fact that they are getting their players back to preseason, but they're also kind of biting their nails and hoping that there's no back-breaking injuries that some of their star players is going to suffer in preseason. And unfortunately, there are a couple of clubs that is unfortunate that some of their player had to suffer a back-breaking injury as the season starts. But we first talk about certainly one of the biggest, if not the biggest signing of this off-season, and that of course is Nashville. They signed LAFC center back Walker Zimmerman in exchange for $950,000 allocation money with an international spot and $150,000 GAM in 2021 and 2022 if Walker Zimmerman meets certain performance basis metrics. So this deal could actually reach as high as $1.2 million allocation money that LAFC is going to receive for Walker Zimmerman. And I gotta say, when I first read this news, I was pretty shocked the fact that Zimmerman was leaving LAFC. And in fact, LAFC themselves even said that they weren't expected to get rid of Walker Zimmerman and expect him to trade to another team. But I guess since Nashville decided to put this juicy offer to LAFC to get Walker Zimmerman, they just couldn't turn down. I mean, it is incredibly hard to try to turn down a deal for a defender that you're going to get around $1.2 million of allocation money. But, you know, for Nashville, this is definitely a great signing for them. And for LAFC, you know, losing Walker Zimmerman is definitely huge because he's the best defender of that team, and he's the leader in that back line for this team. And you know, they do have some good depth pieces in their back line, and I'm guessing them getting rid of Walker Zimmerman means that they really trust Tristan Blackman and Danilo Silva as the two partnership in terms of that center back role. But I won't be surprised if LAFC are thinking about replacing Walker Zimmerman and that they're going to use that allocation money to potentially use to replace him. But as I said, for Nashville, this is definitely a great deal. I mean, one thing I will say this is that does this kind of change my perception that Nashville will not be like FC Cincinnati? Maybe. I mean, they do get one of, if not the best defender in the league last season, but the problem is they still haven't had a lot of goals scored on this team, and I just wonder, you know, yes, it's great that they are loading up in terms of their defense, and I think the defense is going to be their solid foundation of this team, but you just wonder where is the goal going to come in this team. And if you are struggling in terms of scoring goal, even if you have one of not the best defender in Walker Zimmerman on your team, you're not going to go very far and not going to make the playoffs if there is no goal scored on this team. Now, Rodolfo Pizzaro is set to join Inter Miami after Rayados announced his departure, and this actually just happened a couple of hours ago where Rayados officially announced that Rodolfo Pizzaro is no longer with them, which means that this deal is getting very, very close. I mean, for the last couple of days, there's been just tons of rumors talking about how it's getting very close for this deal to get done, and they're just kind of negotiating in terms of the transfer fee and the salary that Inter Miami is going to get for Pizzaro. And I'm guessing the transfer fee is going to at least be around $15 to $20 million as it was first reported, and they're definitely going to make him the most expensive player in that squad. And it's definitely a good addition in terms of the midfield, and this is definitely kind of a big name that they've been really want to get for their expansion year. But I just don't know, it's great to have Rodolfo Pizzaro, and he could be a difference maker on this team, but in terms of a standpoint with Inter Miami, knowing the fact that this is not just a team that wants to please fans with some good signing and bring some big time player down in Liga MX, but they also want to bring in some of the best European superstar player and some well-known players on this team, and this offseason they haven't really done that. Now, that doesn't mean that they won't do it this season and that they still have the summer transfer window, but it just seems like now with the way that as this off season has gone, it's looking more and more likely the fact that they are probably going to get that superstar kind of players that they're hoping to get with this team during the summer transfer window. I heard this week they were rumored with Neymar, which, again, the reason why I didn't put that on the board is that when I first read this, and I believe Extra Time Radio was actually talking about this, and I just laughed. The fact that they were so excited, the fact that Neymar was going to come. First of all, Neymar is not going to come to MLS unless maybe he's going to get to his mid-30s and he's just going to come to MLS to retire. Neymar is still in his peak of his power. There is no way that he is going to come to MLS unless if a club decided to just absolutely break the bank to get him. And even that, I don't think it's going to happen until these next couple of years. So that's why I didn't put that on the board, because of all the ridiculous rumors I've heard about Inter Miami, that is right up there, if not the most ridiculous rumor, the fact that Neymar is going to be coming to Inter Miami, and it's going to be coming a couple of years, and especially a couple of years where yes, you say that he might become a couple of years, but a couple of years there can be a lot that can change in this league, and that again, I just don't buy into the fact that he is going to come to MLS anytime soon. And if he does come to this league, it's not going to be at least for the next 5 years. Now, Atlanta United have acquired Uruguayan winger Manuel Castro, and I believe this is the replacement for Tito Villalba that they lost this offseason. It's going to be interesting to see how he's going to do. He's definitely fits in that category of what Atlanta United love to do, which is when they get rid of one of their talented South American player, they replace him with another young talented South American player. So we shall see if Manuel Castro will fit that role, and he could be as good as when Tito Villalba was with Atlanta. Brad Guzan, of course, agreed to a multi-year contract, which means that with him agreed to a multi-year contract, I'm guessing he's going to retire with Atlanta. I think he's around 33 or 34 years old right now. He's really getting up there to an age where in a couple of years he might think about hanging his boots. Although Guzan is a goalkeeper, and goalkeeper tends to last a little bit longer compared to outfield players that can maybe even go all the way up to their 40s if they wanted to. But I'm guessing with him signing a multi-year contract, and with the way that he's still on top of his game, and he's still considered one of the best goalkeeper in the league, but just with the way that this multi-year contract works, and by the time this contract expire, he's going to be almost in between his mid and late 30s, and that's usually when you see players and you see goalkeepers start think about hanging their boots up. The LA Galaxy is reported to target Independiente center back Alan Franco, and I'm pretty sure if you're an LA Galaxy fan, you are definitely paying attention to this deal even more closer than when they were paying attention to the Chicharito deal. Well, actually, I know when they were looking at the Chicharito deal, they obviously was paying close attention to this, but I feel like Galaxy fans need to pay just as close attention to this as they did with the Chicharito deal because they desperately need a center back. And this is a guy that, if they are able to get, is going to be a foundation piece to try to fix this back line where, right now, I still have a big question about this back line. And, during this offseason, they've only acquired one piece in the back line, and I believe it was a left back that they acquired, Emiliano Insu from Stuttgart. But even that, it still is the same back line that they had last season. And as long as they're not going to get help and not thinking about signing a center back to try to improve their back line, they could be in for another seasons where they're going to give up a ton of goals like they did last season. So, certainly for Galaxy fans, they hope that this deal would went through. And if this deal would went through, this would be a huge upgrade to that back line that is one of the most leakiest back line in the league. Minnesota trade Wyatt Onsberg to Chicago in exchange for Raheem Edwards. So right now, Chicago, they pretty much have half of the back line that Minnesota had during their inaugural season. I remember Onsberg was a player that used to play for Minnesota during the time when Minnesota was just a laughing stock in the league, and that defense was as leakier as the Galaxy has been in the past couple of seasons. And now he is going to be going to Chicago and rejoin with his former teammate Francisco Calvo there. And in exchange of that, Chicago will have to give up Raheem Edwards, which I feel like Raheem Edwards, I'm kind of glad that he got out of Chicago, because I feel like he was unfairly benched when he was with the Chicago Fire, and that I don't understand why he didn't get a lot of minutes playing there. Like, I thought when he went to Chicago, that was a great opportunity for him to get some minutes to play under Veljko Paunovic, but instead Veljko Paunovic kind of treat Raheem Edwards like that player is in his doghouse, and he never really got the opportunity that he really needed. And now he does come to Minnesota, where I'm pretty sure he will get the opportunity, and that this is definitely a great depth piece that Minnesota has added. And I'm just glad that the Loons are actually started to not only they finally start to sign players, but they're actually stocking up in terms of the attack, and that, a couple more pieces there, and this Loons team can be a very, very dangerous team in the Western Conference. Now, speaking of depth, the Loons also added more depth in the striker position. So after a couple of days where they got Luis Amiola, which I was so happy that deal finally went through, because it's been rumored for the last couple of weeks, or not the last couple of weeks, but for the last couple of months, that this guy was going to go to Minnesota. And when it's finally announced, I was so relieved the fact that he is now going to be our main striker. And now I'm even more relieved the fact that he's not going to be a guy that we are going to be just super kind of rely on, and at least we're going to put a little bit low off of him, because we also added more depth in terms of the striker position, and that we added former Columbus Crew striker Aaron Schoenfield, which he actually went to Israel, and I believe he went to Maccabi Tel Aviv. I heard that he did very well when he was there, and now he's coming back to MLS. And again, this is definitely a great depth piece to have. And it's also going to be interesting to see with him coming to Minnesota, and that he's definitely going to not only potentially fight for that starting spot, but maybe fighting for that backup spot with Mason Toy, in terms of seeing who can be a good backup striker to Luis Amiola, and in case if Amiola does either go on international duty, or if he is injured, then it's going to be interesting to see if he can, of course, step up. But yeah, Minnesota, I am happy the fact that they are not only start signing players, but they are really started to boost up their attack. And now the only thing that makes me even more happier and just kind of put me over the moon about this team is if they can get the Emmanuel Reynoso deal done, which again I have been hearing a lot of reports that it is getting very close, and it just gets to a point where the Reynoso deal is like the Amiola deal that Minnesota tried to get it done for a very long time, and there was just so many reports that it was going to happen, and then finally when it happens, it was such a relief. I feel like it's going to be the same case if Reynoso, so if he does go to Minnesota, and that I'm going to be so relieved the fact that the deal is finally done, and we just basically solved every problems that we had last season and every ways to try to improve this team, which is add more decent attacking pieces on into this team. Now, former Minnesota United fan favorite Miguel Ibarra is actually on trial with the Seattle Sounders, and Ibarra, I definitely wish him the best of luck in terms of finding either a club in MLS or his future career of whichever club that he wants to, because again, he was one of the fan favorite, and it's kind of sad that Ibarra and Ramirez, who Minnesota fans called them Superman and Batman, is no longer with this team, and that it's kind of sad that era is kind of done, but for the Loons, they are definitely moving into a new direction, and I'm not saying Ibarra was a dead weight for us, but last season he really kind of fell out of favor, and it was just getting to a point where, yeah, it feels like eventually we are going to have to let him go. And this is a little bit different than the Christian Ramirez situation, and again, the Christian Ramirez situation still kind of upsets me with the way that how we just let him go, even though he was still the main contributor. This was not the case, where Ibarra, yes, he was kind of a main contributor for us for the first couple of seasons when we were just absolutely awful, but ever since last season when the team started being good, and then he kind of fell out of favor, we knew that eventually his time with Minnesota was coming to an end, and even though he is a fan favorite, we're going to have to move on from him and wish him the best wherever he go, and might go with the Seattle Sounders. Montreal acquire Emmanuel Metzel from San Lorenzo as part of the Piatti deal. So I kind of mentioned this when I was talking about Nacho Piatti leaving Montreal, and I did a video about this, how the good news for Montreal is that despite the fact that they definitely lost a club legend, and this is definitely going to be a big hole that they need to fill, at least they, of course, got one of those players that they might think that he could fill in that hole. Now, I'm not saying that Emmanuel Metzel could be a young Nacho Piatti, but at least they got a young South American player that I heard that he definitely had some potential to be a decent player. So, yeah, we shall see how he will do with the Impact, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be under a lot of pressure when he is with the Impact, because he is supposed to be the guy that Montreal fans hope that they can fill Piatti's shoes, and whenever you're the guy to step in to try to fill in such a legend like Nacho Piatti, it is not going to be very easy. So we shall see how that's going to go for Montreal, and again, at least the good news is, despite the fact that they lost a club legend, at least they still got a acquisition done, and at least they don't have to search for a players that they want to sign in order to try to replace Piatti in that spot. Speaking of Piatti, TFC also acquired a Piatti, but this is Pablo Piatti, as they of course acquire him from Espanyol on a designated player contract. Now, I kind of mentioned a little bit about him in the last News of the Week episode, and I didn't like the fact that I said in the last episode, I'm hoping maybe this is not a DP contract, because yes, he has done well when he was in La Liga with a couple of clubs, but he's now 31, and you usually don't see a lot of team nowadays sign DP player that is over the age of 30, unless if they are a player that is very well known around the world. And Pablo Piatti, it is one of those guys that is definitely not well known around the world. So I'm interested to see why they decided to get him. I mean, it's not really a bad deal, but hopefully if this is going to be a deal where they're going to make him as a designated player, at least there's also an option where they can buy down his contract. And it also just tells me that TFC, they're definitely in a win now situation. Like, they knew that they were so close of winning MLS Cup last season and retaining another MLS Cup for the second time in 3 years. And this season, they're going to be there with the way that they kind of load up their squad again. They're going to be gunning to try to go to MLS Cup again, just like last season. But that being said, I am now going to be switching the boards right now to look at the remaining news that happened during this week. Well, unfortunately, this is part of the show where I have to talk about injuries. And I definitely do not like talking about injuries in the news of the week. And I especially don't like to talk about injuries during the preseason, because I really felt like preseason injuries is just as, if not more, backbreaking than when you see a player go down with an injury in the regular season. Because at least in the regular season, when you go down with an injury, at least you're going down with an injury during a competitive match. Whereas in the preseason, it's not really a competitive match, and you're just kind of getting up to your fitness. And not only that, kind of bring a little bit of a headache to teams that have to readjust their roster because one of their star player is out for the first couple of weeks in the beginning of the season. But this also is tough for the players too, because, for these players that are very looking forward to the beginning of a new season, now they suffer a back-breaking injury, and now they're going to have to kind of wait for a couple of weeks before they can be really excited to start a new season. So, first of all, we have George Bello, unfortunately suffered a serious head injury in the preseason, and actually, unfortunately, is an understatement in terms of this injury. This is absolutely devastating to see George Bello once again suffer another serious injury. Last year he suffered, I believe, either a broken foot or a torn ACL, and that now he suffered a serious head injury, where I'm pretty sure Atlanta is going to really monitor this, because head injuries, especially serious one, is something you just cannot rush a player back as quick as possible. And with him kind of suffering these back-to-back serious injury, you just wonder that not only this will really kind of damage the fact that he can be back with this team as soon as possible, but also the fact that his development too, because this is a guy that is rated as a very young, promising talent that not only can be the guy that will be the regular starter for Atlanta in that fullback position, but also for the U.S. men's national team too. And now the fact that he's going to be out again for a long spell of period, which, by the way, Atlanta didn't say exactly what the timetable is, but I won't be surprised if it's going to be at least half of season. I mean, especially when you have a young guy like this, I talk about you don't want to rush him in terms of trying to rush him after he suffered this serious head injury. You especially don't want to do that with young guys, because young guys still have a lot of career left in their mind, and the last thing you want to do is rush them after a serious head injury. And if they develop another head injury again, that could really not only jeopardize their chances of recover from another head injury, but also jeopardize their career for the rest of their life. So, I wish George Bello a speedy recovery, and I hope he does recover fully from another serious injury that he have suffered throughout his young career. Julian Carranza is out 10 to 12 weeks with a broken foot, and remember how I said Inter Miami, and how one of the big question I have with this team is that, I have question in terms of the striker position and whether or not if their striker is going to be the players to really score goals with this team. And some people actually said that Julian Carranza might be the regular starter with this team, and that a lot of people and a lot of the coaching staff of Inter Miami really rate him very highly. And now it seemed like he is not going to be with the team at least for the first 12 week of the season, because he's out 10 to 10 week with a broken foot. And now this also means that the depth chart in terms of Inter Miami in the striker position is very, very thin. Like, Juan Agudelo is really the only striker that they had in terms of a guy that they can use without playing another player out of position or relying on a false nine. And in some way, maybe this is a good chance for Juan Agudelo to really start it to kind of have this redemption story and can really start to prove that he can rediscover his good form that he has when he was with New England. But, you know, in case if he doesn't do that, and in case if he does went down with an injury, then they don't really have any other quality striker on their team, and now they're going to have to really think about playing somebody that is not a number 9 in that spot or playing in a false 9 position. So this is definitely devastating to see a player that one of the player that they first bought into the team suffer an injury so early into not even the season, but into the preseason. But hopefully when they get him back, you know, he could be just as good as they think that he could definitely be heading into the season. Another striker that unfortunately broke his foot is Adama Diomande, who is going to be out at least for the beginning of the season with a broken foot. They didn't exactly specify what do they mean by beginning of the season and whether or not if it's going to be like Carenza, who's going to be out 10 to 12 weeks. But yeah, this is definitely another big blow to a team and a big blow to LAFC, because I thought when Diomande was on the pitch with this team and when they have him there, he usually provides a lot for LAFC, and LAFC just looks much better when they have Diomande on the pitch. Now, because of the fact that Diomande suffered this back-breaking injury, it seemed like LAFC already have a plan B, and that's kind of one of the good news, despite the fact that they did lose Diomande. And that plan B, of course, is signing BWP. And what's interesting about BWP is that, from what I heard, he actually suffered an injury, and that his trial was actually cut short because he suffered this injury. And I thought maybe that is probably the reason why he is not going to be signing with LAFC. But it seemed like since now Diomande is out of the lineup and they don't really have like a true number 9, that's why they decided to get BWP. And, you know, as I said before, I really like the fact that LAFC decided to sign BWP, because not only he can give you an option off the bench, but he can also act as kind of a little bit of a distraction, where I know teams are still going to be just as worried of BWP as it would be with some of the other attacker in LAFC like Vela and Rossi. So if teams can get very worried, and that if he can provide the movement that he has shown when he was with the Red Bulls, he can definitely attract some attention. And if teams attract too much attention on BWP, all of a sudden you just basically open some lane for Diego Rossi and Vela to do. And I'm pretty sure that not a lot of team in MLS, or if any MLS team, can have to deal with 3 of the most lethal attacking piece in the league. And now LAFC have got that heading into this season. So yeah, this is an amazing signing for LAFC, and that, you know, once they have Diomande back, that's now 4 piece that they have in terms of some very lethal attacking threat going forward. And, you know, again, for LAFC, it just gets better and better in terms of the attack. Like, I think maybe the only thing I'm a little bit concerned about LAFC is the fact that, as much as they've done a very good job in terms of the attack, the defense does kind of worries a little bit after what happened this week, where earlier I talked about Walker Zimmerman no longer with this team, and you don't know who exactly is he gonna be the replacement. Well, they have Tristan Blackman probably ready to take his spot, and they seems to really trust Blackman to be a guy that can take over Walker Zimmerman in that spot. But still, Zimmerman was such a leader of this team, and that he was basically your best defender. You know, just get rid of him and brought in one of the guys that you trust doesn't necessarily mean that that defense is going to be just as good as last season, and that it just feels like this team is too heavy on too attack heavy kind of minded, which is not a big problem to be too heavily attack minded, because you're going to score tons of goals and that you're going to not have to worry about having problems with not scoring goals. But LAFC's got to be careful not to fall on the same problem that the Galaxy has been having in the last couple of seasons, where the Galaxy was another team that was very heavy going for on the attack, but at the back they look very, very shallow. And I'm not saying LAFC is at that point, because I think their defense is still as good as the Galaxy defense, even though they lost Zimmerman. But they just got to keep that in mind, that just because you have a good attacking force doesn't mean you don't have to now worry about defense, and that, you know, you can basically just outscore teams every single time with some very mediocre defender. RSL officially transferred Jefferson Savarino to Atletico Mineiro for a club record transfer fee, and I believe it was $2 million. That was the club record transfer fee, which definitely doesn't sound a lot, but you know, RSL, they are a team that will take as anything that they can get, and I'm pretty sure $2 million for them sounds like $10 million for other clubs. And to replace Jefferson Savarino, it seemed like it's going to be just a Merrim, because they of course signed him to sign him off free agency yesterday, and he most likely is going to play in that spot that Savarino is going to play. Now, is he going to be more effective than what Savarino is? We will see, because Savarino was very good playing in that spot, and it's kind of a shame that they of course decided to sell him off, but at least they earned some profit out of that, and now they're going to get a guy that has known to be a veteran kind of midfielders that have done very, very well for almost his entire career in MLS. And finally, NYCFC are going to play at Red Bull Arena for their CONCACAF Champions League match against San Carlos, which definitely created a lot of uproar in terms of the NYCFC fan base and their supporters. But it seemed like NYCFC, they feel like they knew that this was going to create some uproar in terms of the fan base, so they kind of tried to handle this like a PR crisis and say that we are going to be in discussion now to build a private funded stadium in the Bronx near Yankee Stadium. Now, I'm not sure if this is 100% true, and that whether or not, if they're actually going to finally commit to build a privately funded stadium that is soccer specific. And if that is the case, then well done on them in terms of finally getting this. And, you know, I know that this has just been way overdue in terms of them finally getting a soccer specific stadium and finally move out of the embarrassment of a place that is known as Yankee Stadium. But, you know, at the same time, we don't know if this is going to be true, and that is this just one thing, if this is just something that NYCFC is just trying to, like, you know, they're trying to kind of gives the fan base a little bit of a silver lining and saying that, you know, I understand that you're pissed off that you have to see your team play in this CONCACAF Champions League in the stadium that our main rival is playing. But here's the thing, we're building a new stadium in the future, and, you know, you should be definitely happy about that. So, you know, we shall see whether or not if this is actually true, or if this is just NYCFC just trying to calm the fan base down, who I know the fan base, you know, I talked about how there's an uproar right now going with the fan base, and that I know there's also a lot of boycott that is going to happen in this game, where not a lot of NYCFC fans is actually going to be going to this game, and especially the supporters that is not going to be going to this game. And I don't blame that the supporter group and some of their fans would not want to go watch their team play at Red Bull Arena in the CCL game, because why would you want to watch your favorite team play in a rival stadium for a CCL match, and especially how big of a mess NYCFC have to deal with this stadium situation for the past couple of years. This is a huge slap in the face to the supporters, and that in many ways it's definitely not a good look in terms of the club. But again, they tried to create some positive by saying that they will finally build a stadium, but we shall see whether if this is just true or they're just saying just to try to calm the fan base down a little bit. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. I know it's been a relatively long video, but as I said before, since I am doing almost kind of like 2 news of the week, I kind of had to make up the news of the week that I didn't do on Sunday because I've been doing some season previews and I haven't had a lot of time to do news of the week with the combination of these season previews that I've been doing. That's why this video is going to be relatively longer than any news of the week, and probably the longest news of the week that I've done so far. But if you make it to the end, thank you for your support, and hope you guys leave a like and hit that subscribe button. And yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.